Hey guys, Travis from AmericanTrucks.com, and on this episode of The Haul, I'm going to explain what exactly wheel offset is, and I'm going to help you guys decide which offset is best if you're shopping for new wheels. So if you've been looking at new wheels for your truck, then you've probably seen offset listed on the product page. But what is it exactly? What's positive and what's negative offset, and what exactly does it do? Is one better or worse, and what is backspacing for that matter? Those are probably all the questions that you've been asking, so I'm here today to finally answer them for you. I'm going to actually explain what offset is. I'm also going to explain what backspacing is, what the differences and similarities are between the two. I'm actually going to show you guys a few different wheel and tire setups on our 2009 Silverado here. So first, let's actually explain what offset is in the simplest terms. Offset is the measurement of the distance between your wheel's mounting surface and the center line of the wheel drum itself. Now, to keep things consistent, offset's always measured on the inside of the mounting surface, which is the surface where the wheel contacts the axle hub itself. Now, if a wheel's mounting surface falls behind that center line of the wheel, so it's closer to the inside lip, then it has a negative offset. To paint an easy mental picture of this, you can imagine deep dish wheels. Those kinds of wheels have the mounting surface really sunk in. They typically have high negative offsets. Now, if the mounting surface of the wheel in question falls in front of the center line and is therefore closer to the outer lip, then the wheel in question has a positive offset. Now, a wheel with the mounting surface directly in the middle technically does not have any offset whatsoever, though most people refer to this as neutral or zero offset. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Now this brings me to the whole backspacing thing. To understand offset completely, you need to know what backspacing is, and more importantly, how it's different. Backspacing is the measurement of the wheel's mounting surface to the inner edge of the lip of the wheel itself. In the simplest terms, backspacing describes how much of the wheel sticks past the mounting surface and actually goes in towards your suspension components. This is an important measurement because it'll help make sure that your new wheels do not contact things like the control arms, steering knuckles, or the struts when you're actually turning your wheels. Offset, however, is more important when you want to figure out how far inside or outside of the fender you want your wheels to poke. Now keep in mind, backspacing and offset are different, but they are related. The more positive offset a wheel has, the more backspacing it will have. Now there's one more common phrase to talk about, and that's poke. You've probably heard this thrown around on forums or reviews. This basically describes how much of your wheel is sticking out of the fender well based on your offset. Now if you're working with a low or negative offset, then you'll have more poke. And if you have a positive offset, then you'll have less poke. So now you know the basics. Positive offset means you've got wheels that are tucked in with more backspacing and less poke, and negative offset means you're rolling around on wheels that are pushed out with less backspacing and more poke. But what does that all mean for you and your truck? Should you go with positive or negative offset for your desired stance? And what is best for overall wheel and tire clearance? Well, we're going to do some experimenting. I'm going to show you guys 3 different sets of wheels on our Silverado today. 2 are going to demonstrate positive and negative offset, and one's going to have a neutral or close to zero offset. I'm working with our 2009 Silverado, and that truck has a 3.5-inch suspension lift, so let's go ahead and get started. So here we're taking a look at a setup that's closest to factory in terms of offset. Now we've got wheels with a plus 20mm offset for this test, whereas the factory wheels come with a plus 24mm offset, so not a huge difference. Now these are the 17x9 Beast machined wheels from Fuel Wheels, again with those 33 by 12.5 mud grapplers. Now we decided to use 33s instead of factory tires for these comparisons because, well, a lot of you want to lift your truck and a lot of you have questions about whether you can make these larger tires fit with a lift like this without any rubbing or clearance issues. Now getting into a discussion like that could really be its own topic, but in the simplest terms, you will probably have some rubbing at full turn with a setup like this with a factory offset. Now as you can see, it's nothing too crazy, but you might have to do some basic trimming inside the fender well area, particularly to the factory mudguard, or if you're like me, you could just remove it completely. Now, as far as offset goes, plus 20mm, it keeps the wheels and tires pretty much flush with the edge of the fenders up front, and the same deal with the quarter panels out back. And at first glance, these might even look a bit tucked in, so there's little to no poke to speak of in this case. Again, this is a great setup if you really like that factory stance, and it'll ensure that your tread is contained within the fender wells entirely, you don't have to worry about rocks or mud flying up, and you don't have to worry about investing in any fender flares for that matter. So now that we've seen our gold standard kind of close to factory setup, let's get a little bit of poke on here. I'm actually going to throw on our next set of wheels and tires with a neutral offset. So next up we have these very cool 17 by 8.5 Onça wheels from Feel Wheels, and they have those same 33 by 12.5 inch mud grapplers with a -6mm offset. Now this does put the mounting surface of the wheel pretty close to the center line. And as you can see, there is a little bit of poke, maybe about an inch or two if you measure from the top of the wheel well, but it's not too much. I'm personally a fan of this offset because it gives just a slightly mean stance without any excessive tread exposure. Now, you should keep in mind that again, the Silverado's factory wheels actually have a positive offset of around 24mm, so that explains why this close to zero offset still affords some poke. Now this amount of poke isn't too crazy, and it generally keeps the tread inside the fender wells for the most part, so personally I would not worry too much about rocks or mud flying off and damaging your truck with this amount of offset. Now if you were curious about whether more offset helps with clearance inside these wheel wells, well, unfortunately, that is not the case. We do see more rubbing on the back end of the tire against the inside of the well here, and the reason for this is actually pretty simple. Going from a positive to a negative offset changes the pivot point of the wheel itself, and this causes the wheel to swing in and out more as you make turns, kind of like making a lever a little bit longer, you have a bigger swing. So now that we've seen what a close to zero offset looks like, let's go ahead and take these bad boys off, throw on our last set of wheels and tires, and let's take a look at what a decent negative offset does for us. So finally, we've got a set of SOTA off-road wheels measuring 17 inches by 8.5 inches with, again, our 33-inch mud grapplers. Now, these wheels have a -32mm offset, which makes for a pretty big and aggressive stance, as you can clearly see. Now, this setup actually pushes the wheels about 2.2 inches past the factory offset, and the result is that the shoulder lugs and a pretty good chunk of the tread itself actually comes out of the fender wells completely. Now this is obviously a lot of poke, and a lot of guys and gals like this look with bigger fender flares and a more extreme lift than what even our truck has on it currently. Now I personally would not run a wheel with this amount of offset without flares of some sort, and that's only because there is definitely a good chance that you will be flinging up rocks and debris without them. Now, if you wanted to make this amount of offset work with a 33-inch tire, you're gonna need a crazy lift if you want to avoid rubbing, because as you can see, this level of offset really puts the wheel way past its pivot point, so it rubs pretty easily. Now, I couldn't speculate on what kind of lift you would need to make this work, but you'd have to really get the truck high enough that a large portion of the tread actually falls out of the fender well entirely, or you'd have to do a fair amount of cutting inside the fender well. So having taken a look at these 3 sets of wheels and tires, that actually wraps up my overview and my comparison of what offset actually is and what it does for your truck. Hopefully you're a little bit better equipped to shop around for your next set of wheels and tires. Be sure to subscribe to American Trucks for more cool truck content like this. And also be sure to let me know in the comments below what you're actually running on your Silverado or your Sierra. I'm definitely curious to hear about it. Other than that, I'm Travis. Thanks for watching. For all things Chevy and GMC, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.